All right, let's practice a couple more of these, put this all together with the slope formula here. So exercise number 4, for each, find the slope by determining the change in y over the change in x. I'm going to do B and C with you guys together here, and then you guys are going to try A and D on your own. So let's look at B. First of all, I'm going to rewrite the formula because I think that that's important to note, okay? So the formula here is the change in y over the change in x. And remember, change we denote as this delta symbol, okay? So delta y over delta x. Now, what I would recommend is I would recommend highlighting and using your highlighter tool. So what I would do is I would first highlight your y value. So let's do a different color here. Let's do yellows. Okay, so my yellow values are my y values. So when I do my subtraction, I know exactly what numbers to put where. So then I'm going to put my x values in my green. Okay, so I'm going to highlight yellow as the top number and green as the bottom. Why did I do that? Well, the y's are yellow and the x's are green. Now that I've highlighted everything, it becomes a lot easier for me to do this. Okay, so let's start with the y's. All right, I'm also going to be using grouping symbols, and the reason why is because I want it to look like this formula that we talked about all the way up here. I want it to look like this, but the computer will not let me do this without grouping the top together and the bottom together with some parentheses. So remember, parentheses just group things. All right, so it does look a slightly different than this because this doesn't have any parentheses, but essentially what it'll look like is it'll look like this, but with just parentheses around the top and a parentheses around the bottom. And all that means is that I have to do these subtractions first, but we already know that you got to do the subtraction first and it'll give you your fraction. So let's take a look at what numbers I need to subtract. I'm starting with the top, and the top is the yellow. So I'm going to subtract the 2 minus the 5. Why did I choose that order? Because I always like to do the second point's values subtract the first point's values. So let's look at the second one in front. Okay. So now I'm doing my division symbol, my fraction bar, and now I'm doing the x values. So the x values here are 9 minus 3. I'm keeping the same order as I did in previous. Notice that this 2 and this 9 came from the second point. This 5 and this 3 came from the first point. So I kept it in the same order. Okay. Now I'm going to use my algebra skills. Okay. And I'm going to simplify this. So we know that you have to do anything in parentheses first. So these subtractions have to come first before this fraction bar, which means division. So 2 minus 5. Now, here's where you're going to want to make sure you check everything in your calculator, because you could easily say, oh, 2 minus 5, that's 3. But remember, order matters in subtraction. Is 2 minus 5 positive 3? Or no, it's negative 3. So this is a negative 3 on top. Okay. And on the bottom, I'm doing 9 minus 3. I can check that in my calculator again just to make sure. Okay. But 9 minus 3 should give me a positive 6. Okay. So I have a positive 6 here. And that's my slope so far. Okay. Now, remember what we talked about in the last video. You should always make sure that the slope is fully reduced. How can I do that? Well, I can go right to my Desmos calculator, put in the fraction, and see if it reduces it for me. So I'm going to put in this fraction, negative 3 over 6. Okay. I get this decimal, and remember we just clicked this button that says convert to fraction, and yes, it has simplified it for us. Okay, it has reduced. It's now negative 1/2. Okay, so negative 1/2 is actually my slope. Okay, so I can rewrite it over here because this becomes long and crazy. It's nice to just have the slope in one spot. So the slope for B between the points 3, 5 and 9, 2 is negative 1/2. All right, let's try C, and then you guys are going to try some on your own. Okay, again, I'm going to start with the formula. So M equals, and I'm going to start with my symbols. So delta Y over delta X. What does that mean again? That means the change in Y's over the change in X. How do we find the changes? We subtract. Okay, so let's start annotating. Okay, marking it up, highlighting. All right, so I'll start my Y's. My Y values are 2 and negative 2, and those go on the top. Okay. So I'll come here and I'll do that part first. I'm going to start with the second point again. So -2 and then a -2. The nice thing there is I didn't have to do any parentheses inside parentheses, which start to look crazy. But remember, you don't want any symbols next to each other. We're good. We don't have any symbols next to each other. All right, let's do the bottom. The bottom are the x's. So I'm going to make those in green. Here's a -6 and a 6. Okay, and those go at the bottom. So again, I need to make sure everything's in the right order. So I'm starting with the second point here, 6 minus, and now this time I'm going to have to do parentheses because I can't put minus negative. All right, so this looks a little strange, but again, we are doing that to separate things, and if you do it in your Desmos calculator, everything will be fine. Okay, this is a crazy looking fraction, but we could actually put this whole thing in our Desmos calculator if we want to, if you don't feel confident in yourself. All right, so let's do that. Okay, let's try putting the whole thing in our Desmos calculator. Make sure you always have parentheses though. So -2 minus 2 is the top number. Then we're hitting our divide symbol, which will give us that fraction. Now I'm doing in parentheses 6 minus -6. So again, I'm making sure I have my parentheses, 6 minus, and inside the parentheses, I'm putting -6 just to separate those things. Okay. All right. Now I'm getting this crazy decimal, but remember we just converted to a fraction and we're good. Look at that. It did the whole work for us. And this is reduced. They're always going to give you the fully reduced. So if you do want to put the whole thing in your calculator, I have no problem with it. Okay. We're not trying to assess whether you can simplify a huge fraction like this. We're just trying to assess whether you can find the slope between 2 points. Well, use your Desmos calculator and you can. So this is -1/3, and that is my slope. And again, like I said, the Desmos calculator is always going to give you the fully reduced. So there's no reducing left to go on in this one. And we have our slope. So the slope of a line that connects these 2 points would be -1/3. Okay, you guys are going to try A and D on your own. All right, and then you're going to turn this lesson in and start on the homework. So good luck, and I'll see you in the next lesson.